we got over 30 people here after a Twins win. That's pretty exciting. I want to thank everybody for joining. The Postgame Pint. I'm John Bonus from Twins Daily. I'll be your host. Before I introduce the panelists, there's a couple things you should probably check out. The first is that you will find a Zoom webinar chat area, and we're asking people to go in there and tell us where they came from. We've got, let's see, we've got Ed from Corvallis, Oregon. Got some Mike from Willow River. Got more North Dakota in the house because Cody's bringing all the North Dakota kids to the yard. We got somebody from Bismarck, Eric from Bismarck. Butte, Montana, we have somebody calling in or checking in from. This is cool. The first time we really asked for people to do this. And we got Paul from the moon. Paul is over the moon probably about that Twins win. So yeah, that is where you're going to want to do chats. Let's continue to let us know where you're from. That's also where you can discuss things and submit some questions or comments on some things. We'll make sure that some of our panelists are always kind of checking in there to see how things go. You'll also find a Q&A area if you want to ask some questions of the panelists. We will check that, and it's probably a little cleaner of an area than the chat area if you've got a specific question you want to ask. And then finally, you'll see that you can raise your hand if you want me to unmute you and have you join the discussion for a question. Raise your hand and I'll try to get to you. It doesn't put you on the screen. It just allows you to voice your question if you would like to try that. And so we'll do that a little bit towards the second half of the thing. With that, let's introduce our panelists, and they can each tell us what their post-game pint is tonight. Ted, why don't you kick us off?
I am going with the DMs from Blackstack in.
Oh, I love Blackstack. I love their IPAs.
Where are they? Oh, St. Paul.
Yeah.
I just randomly tweeted that out the other night that I am right now a huge fan of Blackstack. Lupulins in Iowa, but Lupulins in Big Lake. But Lupulin, Blackstack,
yes,
Toppling, Goliath are really my go-tos right now.
I've been to Lupulin. Lupulin's great. Cody, you have a post-game pint?
All my beer is at the lake, so I'm going with the mixed drink in a 2010 AL Central Champs cup.
Nicely done.
Because that's what I had in the house. So.
Yep, I got you. Jeremy, how about you?
Blue Moon Light Sky. That's my drink of the summer.
Blue Moon Light Sky. All right. If you've got a post-game pint, feel free to add that in the chat. We'll try and call a couple of those out. My post-game pint, because I have to be up at about 4:45 in the morning for the Power Trip morning show tomorrow, is a herbal mint tea.
Ooh.
So, yeah.
Buckle up.
Nice to see. Yeah, easy. It's actually good. Now it's my new walk-off drink. Now whenever I need a big 4-run comeback and a walk-off win, I've got to just start drinking herbal mint tea. Let's talk about the game with that. I guess, the opening, I had 4 or 5 different topics that you usually want to talk about, but we've got to start talking about the 9th inning and the walk-off win for the Twins. I expected once they came back to tie for them to win this game, one way or the other. The Pirates, I don't think, are a real good team. And I haven't been following Nick Birdy too much recently, but when you bring in Nick Birdy, that feels to me like not necessarily waving the white flag, but not too terribly far from waving the white flag. I loved the idea of Polanco leading off. I thought it was a missed opportunity in the 6th inning. And then, we finally saw that top of the lineup really perform the way we expected it to. I don't know. What were you guys' takeoffs on a walk-off win?
I don't understand a manager that is so in tune with this Twins lineup coming from their bench last year facing Nelson Cruz. You look at Sano's numbers coming into tonight. He'd had 23 at-bats before tonight and didn't have a walk. Morneau mentioned on the broadcast right before that at-bat that with Birdy, you don't want to have the bases loaded so that he has to come to him and doesn't have anywhere to put him. But, Sano is striking out almost 50% of the time. He's got a 20% whiff rate, and he doesn't have a walk. You could have gotten a double play in that situation, yeah.
Two of the slower guys you'll ever want at home and first base for a double play, right?
Right. Sano's probably a guy that puts the ball in the air, but I mean, who of those two do you trust to put the ball in play? I mean, that's Nelson Cruz. There's no way you pitch to Nelson Cruz scenario.
Cody?
Yeah, Polanco coming in off the bench, I think his at bat was really good to get the inning started. And like you said, John, maybe they could have used him earlier in the game when they had the opportunity. But I mean, it worked out. Obviously, I mean, this isn't a good Pirates team. We saw Derek Holland at probably his best, and then we saw what their bullpen is, and it's not much. I mean, when you throw out a guy that walks three guys and to lead to the Twins coming back a little, and then even the other guys they put in, it wasn't super impressive. But I mean, that's what you expect from a team that's only won a couple of games and wasn't expected to do much. So yeah.
Jeremy?
Yeah, Nick Birdie hasn't been great. He does have a save for the Pirates, so he's one of their better relievers. It's curious to pitch to Cruz, but even if you get Cruz and you get Sano, you're going to have to get Kepler out then, right? Or if you put one guy on base, you're going to have to get Kepler out. And so maybe that was the thinking. Cruz hasn't hit the ball. I mean, he had his little bloop single and didn't look great at the plate. Hasn't looked great at the plate, for 5 days. So you roll your dice, and with that lineup, and even though the lineup wasn't the typical lineup, and Donaldson's not in it, and Rosario's not in it, the typical lineup, you still have to pick your poison. And picking Nelson Cruz, is a curious decision, but if he gets him out, they have a chance to go into the 10th inning. So it didn't work out for the Pirates, but I have a feeling 2-8 right now. There's not going to be a lot of things that work out for the Pirates this year, and that's just how it's going to be. Worked out for the Twins, and we're happy for it.
I mean, throw Birdie out there, see if he can do it, and if he can't, he can't. Like I think if you're their manager, that's what you're trying to do is test the waters and see if how he handles that situation. It's not, I mean, even with expanded playoffs, does it matter? Like the Pirates shouldn't make the playoffs. So
when expectations are as low as they are for the Pirates, it's almost like the manager can do no harm, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's if you're playing for the win, well, then you're playing for the win. If you're not playing for the win, well, then you're testing out those players underneath high stress situations and seeing whether or not you've got an asset on your hand for Nick Birdie. So, I mean, I guess, but boy, it was some curious questions. What else did you guys take away from the game? Ted, anything in particular grab you about it?
Yeah, I think it's kind of a theme this season in that the Twins are 8-2, which is a really, really good start, but they're not clicking. I mean, Lewis Thorpe threw tonight, and he did his job. He gave up 3 runs. He wasn't sharp, but 3 runs with this lineup should keep you in a game, and it did tonight. But still, that was one of the least impressive offensive performances they've had all year. Derek Holland was awful last year, especially against right-handed hitters, and the Twins didn't do really anything against him tonight. So even though, on a daily basis we talk about, this is the death lineup or this is their best lineup or Donaldson coming back, like they haven't hit really outside of the first inning or two for most of the season. And so to be 8-2 through, I think, John, I saw you on Twitter today mention too that the beginning of their season was probably the toughest stretch they face until that last, 2 weeks of September, where I think they have the Indians and the White Sox and the Cubs or something like that.
And the Reds. Yeah, right.
Yeah, to be 8-2 at this point and not clicking. Yeah, a lot of lineups are not hitting. I think batters are behind pitchers, not seeing live pitching and whatnot. But yeah, if this lineup comes around and the pitching stays where it is, and they're 8-2 at this point, and then they get to feast on the Tigers and the Royals for a couple series. I mean, this week is a week where they can run and hide. They have 4 games with Pittsburgh, and then they have, I think, 3 with Kansas City. Like, that's, and Cleveland lost tonight. That's tough for a team to come back from.
Cody, how about you? What struck you about the game?
I mean, as a prospect guy, I like seeing Alcala out there. I mean, he was rough to start. I mean, to say the least. Couldn't really find the zone, find where he was looking for. But I mean, we saw him
pulled it together before the end of the second at bat, though. You know, I mean, it was right.
Yeah, and he settled in nicely, and I mean. We don't have Brustar Gratterall anymore, so I mean Alcala is kind of in that same realm though of tossing it up there. And he's not hitting over 100, but he's I think he put together some with Garver behind the plate. He put together some nice at bats and put some good pitches out there, and it was fun to watch him. I mean. It was a close game. It was the Pirates aren't exactly going to be fighting for, anything, but it was nice to see him go out there and be throwing the way he was.
He, first of all, his presence there gave, some of the higher leverage arms in the bullpen a break, and that's something they needed after a bullpen game yesterday. We've seen the rotation kind of get knocked around a little bit. Maybe we'll talk about that a little bit later, and really have to rely on, options 6, 7, and 8 right now, where they're really relying on Dominic, Smeltzer, and Thorpe in these games to start. And so you need to keep your bullpen, the higher leverage arms in your bullpen available. He did a nice job of stepping into there. By the second inning, he had clearly warmed up and was hitting 98 miles an hour on the outside half of the plate pretty regularly and down in the zone pretty regularly. That was encouraging to see. So I agree with you. I was excited. I was excited 8 when I saw him warm up, even though I knew that probably meant that they wouldn't have brought him in if they were up by a run. That they had to have it be down by 4 runs to bring him in. But it was good to see him do some work.
I tweeted, I think his first pitch, I think, was 97, and then like 4 or 5 after that was 98.
Yeah.
And about those 2 velocities, there was probably 6 or 7 people affiliated with the Twins that hopped on that and liked that right away. And so I think they're pretty bullish on where his velocity is at. You mentioned Gratterall, and they don't have a guy that's going to touch triple digits out of the bullpen or as a starter anymore, but I mean, last year they caught flack for that's what they got for Ryan Presley, and they're happy with that's what they got from Ryan Presley.
Yeah, so I mean, for those people in the chat who don't know that much about Alcala was a starting Twins prospect through most of last year, and then he moved up to AAA, switched exclusively to relief, and struck out something like 11 guys in 7 innings or something like that, with just only a couple of walks. He seemed to be a totally different pitcher. It'll be interesting to see if they invest some innings in him. First of all, if he stays on the roster when people start to get healthy, and then whether or not they're willing to invest some innings in him to see if they can develop him into yet one more high leverage reliever in that bullpen. Jeremy, how about you? What did you take away from the game?
Well, a couple things. First off, Ted and the offense. I mean, they've won 80% of their games, and we've sat through multiple years where they've lost over 90. So I think we're just going to take the wins and worry about, like, their offense is putting up crooked number innings, right? So four runs in an inning. I mean, the rest wasn't pretty.
They're bunching them. They're bunching those hits together.
And I don't remember what year it was. They used to one of the years that they won the division. They used to do that all the time, and it's like, this isn't sustainable, and yet they did for a whole year until they got to the playoffs and lost to the Yankees. But this is a 60-game season. They've won 8. I think I figured out the last team that would host in the playoffs, based on winning percentage last year, This year, it's like if you get to 35 wins, you're gonna host a playoff game. So they could basically go 500 for the remainder of the year, and host, that first round.
I was looking at that today. 8 games is already 20% of 35-ish.
Right.
They're already there.
And so an offense that's not firing on all cylinders, which who would expect it to after taking 3 months off, and a pitching staff that is being patched together right now, which I think is all kind of more by design than by necessity. It's fine. And yeah, you get to play the Pirates 4 times. You'll beat them 3 times. You'll get to play the Royals 3 times. You'll probably beat them 2 or 3 times. And they're going to have 13 wins by the end of the weekend. And it's like,
look at you. Look at you drinking the Kool-Aid, Mr. Nygaard.
Well, it's the truth. We sat here after, Seth was like, the Indians are going to win the World Series after Bieber shut them down. It's like, just relax. They got 3 more against the Indians. They didn't hit it well. They pitched it well. But no offenses are maybe the Dodgers, maybe the Yankees, but across baseball, you just don't see guys coming out of the gate and hitting really, really well after this long of a delay. The other thing, Cody, you said the Pirates aren't going to be fighting for anything. That's not true. They'll be fighting for the number 1 draft pick. And
maybe that was Derek Shelton's strategy in the 9th inning.
he might not be there for that. I think he's number 1 in first manager to get let go.
And if it hasn't happened yet, my takeaway from tonight is Louis Thorpe did his job, and he's getting sent to St. Paul, and they're going to bring up another pitcher for tomorrow to get through to probably Friday, where they'll be like, yeah, Rich Hill, you're throwing again. They're playing, I think, this whole pitcher thing, Bailey, 10 days on the DL is essentially skipping 1 start if you throw a bullpen game in there.
Yeah, I want to talk about the rotation, but first let's talk a little bit about what we got in the chat section here. We did have a couple people bring post-game pints. We got a bent paddle, and then we got something from College Station, Texas. New Republic Brewing from College Station, Texas. We've got another one, a Haze Wizard from 3 Nations Brewing. Let's talk a little bit, and then we've got a couple of different questions. Some about whether or not Sano can develop into a serviceable DH, and whether they have any concerns about the Twins pitching staff with injuries and fill-in players like Thorpe not pitching well. So let's talk about that pitching staff. What we learned today before the game, and kind of had to suspect it after hearing that Thorpe was jumping in today when what was clearly Rich Hill's spot on the rotation, that Rich Hill is missing a start. We already have Bailey on the IL, the 10-day IL. Now that goes back, to when was he pitching for the 4th game of the season, right? So last Tuesday.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
so he could be back by this weekend. Jay Odorizzi, we heard had another bullpen session, but we kind of expected him back at the beginning of last weekend, and now we're looking at maybe the beginning of next weekend. We heard that the starters for the Twins, the next 3 games in Pittsburgh are going to be Barrios, Dobnik, and Maeda, right? And that gets us to Friday versus Kansas City. If we don't have any of those 3 guys back, we should also mention Pineda's still out on his suspension for another 28 games now, right? 26 games for him. We're going to be back to, some sort of bullpen game probably on Friday with Smeltzer with being featured again. And then some sort of other pitcher on Saturday. I don't know if that would be Thorpe or if they would consider calling up, I don't know, Poppin? Duran?
Yeah.
I thought your timeline made it seem like Friday, Saturday would be Hill, Odorizzi.
Well, hopefully. Yeah, that could be the case, right?
We're fine.
But I expected Hill today. I expected Odorizzi on Friday. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that you're right. Both of them could be back and taking spots over the weekend, and then all of this is just a blip in the road.
I almost feel like I saw your notes today from, I think it was Baldelli's press conference. I almost feel like they're kind of operating with, hey, we're 7-2. This is working. These opponents aren't good. bump Hill back. He had a little fatigue. He can go Friday against the Royals. Yeah, Odorizzi was supposed to be back, but we don't need to rush him. And if they only make 9-10 starts throughout the season, well then sweet. They're fresh and ready to go in the postseason. I mean, they're at this point at 8-2. I mean, they would have to do a lot to not win.
Well, no, listen, I'm with you. They should be as careful as they. There's no reason to jeopardize Rich Hill, of course, 40-year-old coming back from arm surgery. If he's got some soreness in his back, his mechanics are off. Oh, for the love of God, please sit him for another start. I've got no problem with that. In fact, pal, put him on the 10-day IL while you're at it. I've got no concern about. I'm not trying to say they should be rushing these pitchers back. I'm just saying that we just keep hearing that these pitchers are almost ready, and they're never almost ready. They're never actually stepping into the rotation.
The other thing I think that we're not talking about enough is rosters are expanded. They got 4 extra dudes.
Right.
And the Twins.
Well, they do for another 3 days.
I hate that, by the way. I wish that. I mean,
they're gonna change. They're gonna change that, right?
I think so too. I mean, with outbreaks and whatnot, I don't understand how you can say that you're gonna cut it down 2 players and then another 2. That it doesn't make sense.
But with Terry Ryan in the Terry Ryan era, the Twins played with 25 guys. Only it usually felt like they were playing with 22.
Right.
Under the current regime, they play with 25. It feels like they're playing with 28.
Yeah.
They've got 30, and it feels like there's guy that's like, oh yeah, he's on the roster. So they're gonna cycle through these pitchers as long as they can to keep the guys as fresh as they can late in the year. Like Brios, they're probably gonna try to play him every 5 days because he hasn't been great and he wears down, but get him right. Rich Hill looked really good. Homer Bailey looked really good. Maeda's looked really good. Like they don't have to throw every 5 days now. If they can throw once a week and be fresh and not have to wear out their arms. Like I feel like they're going to wear out an arm like Lewis Thorpe, like they did tonight. If it's a game that really, really matters, they're going to pull him and get a guy in there.
You just got your clarity too. Seth, Betsy, bunch of those. Rich Hill just went on the IL with fatigue. So Thorpe isn't going back, but they're obviously getting another pitcher tomorrow.
Yeah, but the Rich Hill going on the IL, he was already out. Well, I guess he can only go back 3 days now too.
Right, but so that bumps him 7 days. But then Thorpe doesn't have to go to St. Paul to get another pitcher.
Right. Well, that's true too. But I mean, you could. They certainly have had no problem sort of juggling the last man on the roster out of there. And in fact, I mean, if they were desperate for spots on the roster, we got a question in the chat. Any word on Josh Donaldson? And the word we got on Josh Donaldson is that he's going on the road trip. Now, I don't know how important that truly is because the road trip goes all the way until the 14th, so it's a week from Friday. So if he wasn't going on the road trip, that would be news, right? Like that would be how come the guy isn't on AIL when we don't expect him back for at least another 11 days, right? But you know, presumably with them not putting him on the IL and him coming on the road trip, you would hope that means that he's can be coming back to the active roster, back into the lineup sometime in the near future.
Seth just had that Juan Minaya is the pitcher they're calling up. So Thorpe must be staying in the rotation.
No, Juan Minaya has been added to the player pool.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yep. Okay.
Okay.
Were you guys concerned about Thorpe's velocity tonight?
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
I think for a lefty that is never overpowering, the drop is but I mean, yeah, he was down 2 miles an hour from where it was at last year, and he clearly wasn't putting guys away tonight either.
So did we hear who they're calling? I'm sorry, did we hear who they're calling up for?
No,
Hill,
there was no corresponding move for Hill yet.
Okay. Boy, somebody, Justin just pointed out that Chacin sure burned himself. And I don't know, was Chacin in one of the guys that we were talking about right now? Is he the one who starts tonight over Thorpe if he's still on this roster? If he doesn't take his release, it goes down to CHS Field.
Didn't he get lit up with the Braves? I know he got released.
He had one good outing and one bad outing with the Braves.
Okay.
And now he got
Yeah, he's out. He's done. He got cut.
designated for assignment, right?
Yeah.
Probably a Marlin soon.
Yeah, well, no kidding. Well, I think they have some good arms. I mean, if they could go exciting and they could call up Duran, they could call up Chalmers. Like, there's fun stuff.
How about Kalina?
Yeah, that would be fun too. So I mean, there's options. I do want to say, if they go opener again, Alcala followed by Smeltzer and go a little Alco Smeltzer, like that's fun to me. There's a thing there.
Yeah,
No?
I'm done with you. Where's the mute? How does the mute thing work on this? How do you demote people back to
Did
pants?
you just eject me?
I do think it'll be interesting how they use some of those arms we just mentioned from that player pool, because I don't think any of those guys aren't guys you're worried about service time or any of that kind of thing. So Kalina, Chalmers, or guys like that can just come up and provide some innings and hopefully throw gas and also throw strikes. I don't think that they're gonna sit there and think, we got to have them up for a considerable amount of time or what. The only problem there is you have to have 40-man places for them.
The only thing I want to call, we've got a couple more questions here, things in here, but one more thing I wanted to call is, was this the first time we've really seen a Twins game that was impacted by the 3-batter rule, the new 3-batter rule? I don't remember another time seeing that.
Yeah.
And it happened versus the Twins versus Derek Shelton again.
That guy was not very good. I mean, I'm sure he's better than that, hopefully.
Well, yeah, I mean, he wasn't getting the calls that Holland was getting for the first 5 innings either. Once the strike zone tightened up a little bit.
It was weird I thought it was weird that he was their first, and I don't know much about the Pirates, but that he was their first reliever out of the pen. I don't know if they didn't have other options, but
So
what was that?
Nick Birdie's their closer. They're not exactly
true.
I also notice they bring in a left-hander following the left-hander. A lot of times they'll kind of switch that up because they think your lineup is optimized. But to go back to your previous point, Ted, this offensive lineup right now hasn't hit left-handers. It's been very weird. I'm not saying there's anything significant about it. It's only been 80 plate appearances or something that they faced left-handers, but they entered this game with a 572 OPS against left-handers so far, and then they proceeded to stink versus Holland for the first 5 innings. Lower that. Now, I don't know where they ended up by the time it ended, because they finally did get to Holland, and then they walked three several times versus another left-hander. So maybe it's a little different. Let's see, one more question, and then I think we're going to try and sign out here, get this in, get the people to bed here at 11 o'clock or so. One, did Thorpe help or hurt his status tonight? He did not seem sharp to me. Any question, any answer to that?
I mean,
I got my opinion.
I think it wasn't perfect, but he kept the Twins in the game, and the velocity wasn't there, but I mean, if you look back at his minor league numbers, like in the International League, there were strikeouts, so right. I think that helps him. And I think that the Twins were really high on him coming into the spring. And, then
he disappeared for a while.
Yeah.
How about this question? Is Matt Whistler going to be a thing this year? Are we going to be excited about Matt Whistler by the end of this?
That slider is for real. Matt Whistler's a thing.
I mean, Ryan Harper's curveball was a thing too for like.
It's a point. It's a good point.
If Whistler's a 6th inning guy, or a two inning guy at any point in time, like with bullpen arms, you ride them until the wheels fall off a little bit, and he's a perfect example of that. And if he turns out to be a thing, well, great. If not, that's fine too.
Well, and Ryan Harper probably would have been a thing for a full season in a 60-game season.
Right.
That's a fair point.
Whistler could be a full thing for 60 games. He might
for
whole thing in the postseason, but I would imagine, and like I said earlier, I think that the roster cuts are stupid, but I would imagine that in the postseason you're going to have a finite number, 26 or whatever it is. So he might not make a postseason roster, but if he gets you there, great.
Are you throwing him out in like a 3-game series?
Justice Slider.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we now know Rich Hill isn't going to be starting next weekend, right? Are we thinking, what, game Friday, another bullpen game, and then Saturday, hopefully Odorizzi, or Friday Odorizzi, Saturday bullpen? Sunday, we could be back to Barrios. That would be
Couldn't
his
you
turn.
go? Isn't Bailey going to be eligible to come off the DL this weekend?
He should be because
He went on the DL Sunday, right?
I thought it, but then retroactive, right? It
Yeah,
wasn't
3 days, so he
Yeah.
can come off. He can come off Sunday.
Yeah, something like that.
Is that right?
It should be Sunday this weekend.
Depending on, he was placed on August, was it just yesterday? Retroactive to the 29th. So
Okay. All right.
maybe not this weekend, but they'll have another arm. They could go Smeltzer. They could go. I mean, they have Poppin, and Poppin's been a starter in his career. I mean, they, like I said, they with 30 dudes, it feels like 35. They have so many options that it's okay that their starters aren't. I mean, Maeda's been very good. You're not going to get Hill, but you're going to get Odorizzi. You get Barrios. Like, I'm not concerned about the rotation at all because it's deep. Like, there's been years that they've had 5 guys and that's it.
Right. No. I mean, listen, it's obviously a different story than, calling up Pinto, Jorge
Right.
Pinto, right? Pino, right?
Johan Pino.
Johan Pino, right. It's a little different situation than it used to be. There's no question about that.
Right.
I think it'll be interesting this weekend. Well, I get maybe even I don't know how the taxi squad works if you can change it between opponents on road trips, but if they can change it between the 2 games versus Pittsburgh, who is on that taxi squad for the 3 games against Kansas City will be interesting. If they're potential pitchers they can just put in and option a guy.
I gotta think at least 2 of the 2 and maybe all 3 of the taxi squad this time around are going to be pitchers.
Pitcher. Well,
Taxi
they can't do
squad
3
really
pitchers. They can only do two pitchers and
Is
then
that right?
a catcher.
Does the taxi squad really matter, though, aside from the catcher?
No, other than that they're closer.
Right. But, I mean, if you have a guy get hurt, you already have 30 dudes, I think it'll come into play more when you cut down. But
Probably,
if you have 30 guys, like the Twins are having guys on the rosters that are Donaldson.
Not gonna play. Yeah.
But they will be cutting down after the Pittsburgh series, right? Before the World Series,
I
they'll
think
be down
that's
to
the
28.
idea, but nobody knows for sure when it's going to happen because they've put that out there that they'd like to have that go longer, and I don't think that it's hurting anybody to have 30 players at this point. You got to cut it down in a month.
Yeah. All right, well, we'll see. We'll see how they handle this. Suddenly, good that this team has been so deep. They've had a deep bullpen. They've had a deep rotation. They've had a deep lineup, and now we're starting to see, whether or not that. Listen, anytime any team has 3 of their top 5 starters on the IL, which this team now does, they're going to be challenged when it comes to some depth, and they're going to have to do some juggling. So, I want to thank our panelists, Ted, Cody, and Jeremy, for joining us today. I want to thank all the people who joined, all the attendees that joined us. I especially want to thank those people who were courageous to contribute in the chat window. Appreciate that, or on the ask a question. That was great. If you missed any of this, you can find it on the Twins Daily YouTube page, on the Twins Daily Facebook page. You can also find it on the Twins Daily at postgamepint.com. And I think we'll also be posting it in our game recap on a regular basis. So lots of ways to check it. You can also, by the way, check out our podcast. Twins Dailies has a podcast now, which you can find on iTunes, and you'll have an audio-only version of this after every one, so that you can listen to it at work or something if you ever miss one. Our next post-game pint will be tomorrow afternoon. Nick Nelson will be hosting. And it's an early game. I think it starts at 1, so we'll be having a 4 o'clock probably post-game pint right after the last out, just like this one. You can always find the next post-game pint and where it is at postgamepint.com. We'll see you all tomorrow afternoon. Win Twins.